Morning, guys. As Elaine said, my name is Ashley Biasella. I'm a Light Elegance educator. I live here in Chandler, Arizona, so it's already roasting here, in my opinion. It's really not that bad, but I think in the next week we're supposed to hit in the hundreds, so we're slowly getting there. Today, I am going to go over buttercream application with you guys. So for those of you who are not familiar with Light Elegance, we're a family-owned company. We are HEMA-free, 9-free, cruelty-free, vegan, all those things, all the goodness. We are responsibly manufactured right here in the United States in Redmond, Oregon, which is where our HQ is. So if you ever get the chance to go down there, definitely do. I absolutely live for these products. I've been using them for about 11 or 12 out of the 15 years that I've been a nail tech. I did develop allergies really early on in my career, so I was super, super grateful to find this brand. But one of my absolute favorite products is buttercream. So super.
Very outgoing.
My favorite product is buttercream. I love buttercreams mostly because they are super, super pigmented. So they apply in one thin coat. It doesn't affect or alter the shape of my nail, which I put so much effort into shaping, as we all do. So it's really nice to have a product that applies super, super thin that doesn't add bulk or alter the shape of the nail that you just spent hours creating. My other thing that I love using buttercream for is nail art. I won't be going over that today, but I will actually in 2 weeks be on Power Hour again, and I will be going over the basics of nail art, and I will be predominantly using buttercream. So for now, let's get started on how to apply the perfect layer of buttercream. I'm gonna go and switch cameras here. Let me zoom in. All right.
You look good.
Is that too tight?
It may be for your workspace. Let's see how well you stay in camera. I'll let you know if you go out of frame.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
All right. So the two colors that I'm going to show you guys today are Flamin' Hot. So that's from one of our latest collections, our spring summer collection. And then I'm also going to show you one of my basically all-time favorites from the very first collection of buttercream, and that's Your Turn. And it is still my favorite. But I feel like this is such an appropriate color. Like both of these, honestly, are so appropriate to show pigmentation. Because one, how often have we bought a nude or taupe or mauve and it's very patchy, it's very milky, they're very rarely opaque. And reds, I feel like always have a sheen to them. So I'm going to show you guys just how opaque these are. And one of the things that I love most about buttercreams is that they actually are thixotropic, so they change in viscosity, or I like to call it an adjustable viscosity. So basically, when you're going to apply your buttercream, first thing that I tell people they want to decide is how you want to apply it. So personally, I like to apply my buttercream more like, I call it a marshmallow fluff consistency. And that's how I feel like it is straight out the jar, untouched, like it was in the drawer. I open the lid and I just dive right in. Before I do that, my two favorite brushes to use for buttercream application is the number 6 Kolinsky. And so this is a natural hairbrush, and me personally, I'm a sucker for a natural hairbrush. I like these just because you can clean them so easily and they last so long. They do come at a little bit of a higher price point. And then we have our synthetic brushes, which is our number 6 gel polish brush. This is also an amazing brush. You can see how thin and pointed I can get this brush. And these last forever as well, as long as you take good care of them. So first, I'm going to show you guys using the number 6 gel polish brush because I feel like that's what most people use. And then later I will show you guys how I use my number 6 Kolinsky. So if I were to pick up my buttercream and I were to just take a little slice out of that, this is where you can see I'm picking it up, and this isn't really pooling. It's not really self-leveling. Like you can see the little slice I made in my jar. You can see it's not really running off of my brush. It does self-level some, but this is more of that marshmallow consistency that I was talking about. And so this is where I personally prefer to apply my buttercream at this level of consistency. I also prefer to do nail art with this level as opposed to agitating it. But I will show you guys if I take my little Light Elegance stir stick here and we just scoop around the side and give that a very gentle stir. And what we're doing is we're just activating it and allowing those thixotropes to kind of change the viscosity here. And so now you can see, even as I'm picking it up and re-stirring it, notice how it's self-leveling back down into the jar. It's not actually creating those little divots anymore. It's completely leveling out in there. So I'm going to clean off my stir scoop here. So now if I were to come in with my brush and pick up a little bit, see how that string stays longer and it falls back into the jar and it stays stringy longer off the brush instead of breaking. And notice as that little tail is falling down into the pot, it's just self-leveling right back into the product. So this is the second way that you can apply your buttercream. And honestly, both are great options. It's not that one is right or wrong. It's really just preference. I just like the feel of a thicker viscosity, but that doesn't mean that the thinner viscosity applies any less pigmented or any less smoothly. And both, as you're applying it on the nail, it's going to agitate it some anyway. So it's still going to self-level no matter which way you're using it. All right, so I'm going to pick up, and you're going to want to pick up a little bit more than you actually need. So one of the main issues that I see working with people where they struggle with buttercream is that they are afraid, because we tell everyone you want to apply it really thin, you don't want to apply it too thick because it won't cure because of all that pigment that we pack into this little jar. So a lot of people will scrape their brush on the side, they'll pick up a very small amount, then they'll come into the nail and they will want to press and start to pull all that product as thinly as they possibly can. And as you can see, it's pretty pigmented, but it's not actually the color that's in the jar. It's not as dark. It's almost becoming a little bit jelly. So you want to pick up a little bit more than you need, because all of this product is not going to actually stay on the nail. So I'm going to keep my gel on one side of my brush, and I'm going to come into my, apply it this way here. I'm going to come to the back third of the nail first. And it's almost like you're mimicking an application of a structured gel manicure where you're going to put your little dollop like pat. And this is where we're going to start to push it towards the cuticle. Now, I call this the donut. And I feel like we're creating a little ridge that looks like a donut ring. And as we're doing this, that color is going to start self-leveling towards the cuticle. And that way we're not flooding it. We're not getting too close, but we're just butting right up to it. And this is how you get a really smooth application around the edge of the nail. So now that I've created my little donut, that looks like a lot of product. I'm going to come in and I'm going to start pulling from that donut. And this is where I'm going to pull the client's sidewall down. And I'm just going to come into that little corner and pull the product down. And this is where I'm making sure that my brush is wrapping all the way around the edge of my nail. And then I'm going to come in, pat and pull, pat and pull. And I'm basically just repeating that process over the entire nail. And then again, I'm coming into this corner using the corner of my brush. And I'm going to come down the side. And this is where I'm going to come over the entire nail one more time. And now I am doing this in a little bit slow motion for you guys so you can see really what I'm doing. But when working on a client, I do this a lot faster. Just to give you an idea, if I were going to do this in more real time when I'm applying it, it's more like this. And then what I do is I'm actually capping the free edge, but I'm also pulling off some of that excess product. So you can see a lot of that ended up back on our brush. It's not all still on the nail. So now I'm just going to, I don't like to waste product. So I always just swipe it right on the inner lining of the jar. And then because this is a synthetic brush, you're going to take a clean, dry wipe, no cleanser on it, press and pull. And that's going to get the rest of that color out of your brush. And if you need to, you can come, I touch the side of my finger here a little bit. So I'm just going to clean that up. But you can see how smooth that application is. It's self-leveling really nicely. It's just smoothing right up into the cuticle here. My application is clean. There's not a lot of movement there, and it's extremely opaque. And I don't really need a second coat on that. Now, if I do a second coat on a client, my goal is usually to get that second coat really tight into the cuticle. So I'm going to go ahead and actually cure this so I can give you guys an idea of what I mean there. And I'm going to cure this. I have the Gen 4 LE dot. I'm going to cure this for 30 seconds. So one thing that I love about ButterCream, or I guess the thing that I love and the thing that some people hate about ButterCream is actually its greatest strength is because it's so pigmented, it applies so thin, it doesn't alter the shape of the nail. The double side of that is really that if you don't do your prep of the nail properly, if you're not finish filing, if you're not making sure that nail is really smooth, ButterCream will call you out. So if you have any major, let's say I love my 100, 180 perfect files. Now, if I go over the top of this nail and I'm filing and I use a 100 grit file, I'm going to leave some ridges in that nail, right? So when I go over and I apply my ButterCream, a lot of times you're going to be able to see where there's some shaping mishaps. You're going to be able to see where there's some texture in the nail. And same thing with our finish files. Like I love using this, as it's named, as a finish file for all of my final shaping, especially getting around the cuticle nice and tight because this is perfectly curved for that. But again, if we're using this 100 grit and then we're not following it up with a lesser grit and or a buffer, so like I love our foamy files. This is my go-to before ButterCream application because this is going to smooth out any ridges that you might have, any texture that you might have. And that way your ButterCream's not going to call you out on your finish filing. So I'm going to grab a little bit here. And now I'm not going to grab nearly as much on my brush as I did the first time because this really doesn't need anything. But let's say after she comes out of the light, maybe I see that I'm not as close to the cuticle as I could have gotten. Maybe I have a little spot missing on my sidewall. This is where I'm going to take this teeny tiny little dollop. And I'm doing the same motions. I'm still making my donut, but with far less product. And I'm just very lightly pushing it into the cuticle. So when you use your brush, and this is why when I show off our brushes, I always say, look how thin I can get them. And part of that is because this is not really, the tip of this brush is not what you're shoving in there to try to get the product as close as you can. I create that little donut because you're pushing the product. And as the product is getting in there, it's going to settle, it's going to fall like perfectly in there. But if you're trying to put the whole brush down into these tiny little crevices, you're actually going to end up pushing gel in front of that brush and it's going to end up on the skin. So the idea is that use that little bit of gel that's in front of the brush to your advantage. Instead of allowing your brush to do the work, allow your gel to do the work. So then I'm just going to pull that very tiny little bit of product wherever I might need it. A little bit missing right there. And then you just pull that paper thin layer down. And honestly, even with our lighter colors that you may not be able to get as opaque with one coat, I'm going to go ahead and cure that in my light. Even if you are using a lighter color and you can't get it completely opaque in one coat, you would be amazed at how thinly you have to apply that second coat to get that full opaqueness. You have to use hardly no product at all. And that really is the greatest strength of buttercream, is just that insane pigment in one coat. It's crazy. And even if you use two coats, like I said, like it's still so thin. And I really love being able to apply something so perfectly and so cleanly. It's just so satisfying. And then I'm going to top this nail off really quick with Super Shiny. That is my go-to top coat. And if you notice that you do have a little bit of maybe a little dip or an area in your buttercream where you maybe applied it a little too thick or you wobbled a little bit with your brush, Super Shiny is great because it can fill in those gaps for you. So I basically apply all my gel products the same way. I apply my little dollop in the back third, and then I just wiggle them up to that back space right there. So I'm just applying a thin layer of Super Shiny. Now, if I needed to, I could just use that little bit of excess on my brush and drag a dollop down the center of the nail. And then I can flip the hand over and just let Super Shiny self-level on here. But you can see how smooth that is already. So I don't really need to do this, but just to show you guys. So if you do have any issues or anywhere where you feel like your application wasn't absolutely perfect, Super Shiny is a great fix for that. And then using my line of light, seeing I don't have any crazy wobbling in the nail, and then I'm going to cure that for 60 seconds. And then I'm going to show you guys something fun, or what I like to do at the trade shows to show people exactly how pigmented buttercreams are, like a little proof. So I specifically picked this color, not only because it's my favorite, but because, like I said, this is a color that is inherently known to be less opaque, right? You're always nervous to buy a nude or a lighter color because you just don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So I'm going to show you how well this covers over top of the nail art that I already have on the rest of my hand, just so you can see how smooth and even the coverage is. Okay, whoop, sorry, bumped my camera here. All right, so we're gonna call that cooked because she's cute. Also, let me say, I'm not a red person, but this came out and I did some pictures just for social media and I was like, oh, okay, I like that. Everybody always told me I should wear red and I'm like, no, that's okay. And then now I think it's changing my entire personality, but it's fine. Okay, so I have on my index finger here some nail art that I did for the Oregon Nail Expo. So this is a lot going on, and these are some dark colors. There's some reds, there's some dark greens. That's not easy to cover, right? If I take my buttercream here, and now I'm going to use my number 6 Kolinsky just to show you guys. I'm picking up my little bit of gel and I'm going to come in, and because this is grown out, I'm not going to come all the way down here, but I am going to start like at the back third of the existing product, we'll say. And I'm going to just very lightly pull, same as I would on a normal application. My pat, pat, pull. And you can see how effortlessly this super light mauve taupe color, I'm not really sure what you would call this. It's a mauvey taupe either way, look at that coverage. You would never know that there was nail art under there. Like, how crazy is that? Of course, I missed my non-dominant side over here. But you can see just how pigmented these are. And let me show you, this is going to be a perfect example, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And same thing with my, even though this is a natural hairbrush and you can use cleanser on this, so just to touch really quick, I'm a big brush fan and I am a huge advocate for the tools make the difference. So if you put cleanser on our synthetic brushes, they will fray. They will not last. You will not be able to keep this really fine point here. They will start to, let me see. I'm pretty sure I have a brush that I've used cleanser on. Aha. This brush has had cleanser used on it. So you can see, oops, sorry, I have a fan on in here. Or it's a ghost. Ooh. Just kidding. Had a little too much caffeine this morning. Sorry, guys. My brush is really frayed in here. Like you can see all of the bristles are separating. You can see light through it. When I turn it to the side, it is not to a fine point. It has these little frays sticking out on the sides. That is from using cleanser on your brush or being too rough on your brush. So the other way you can damage it is if you bring it to the swipe and just start. That's also a surefire way to destroy your brush. So on natural hair brushes, you can use cleanser, but I still typically on both brushes, just for the best longevity of it, use clear gel. So I actually buy the little opaque pots that you can get, and I put a little bit of One Step in it and I just mark it as brush cleaner, and I will get a little bit out at the end of the day and I run all my brushes through it and then I put them to bed for the night. Okay, back to buttercream because that's why we're all here, right? So I applied this as I would normally applying my buttercream, and you can see how opaque it is. So this is going to be a good way to show you guys if I apply too much pressure and I pull, see how now you can see the nail art. So it's the same thing as really applying any gel. If you're applying too much pressure and you're pulling, you can see now with the product I just took off the nail, I can cover that right back up. So it's not, it doesn't have anything to do with the amount of product. It has everything to do with pressure and direction. So pressure being how much am I applying to that nail? And if you see your bristles moving outward, that's a good indication that you are pressing too hard. Your bristles should almost not change at all. They should barely move as you're applying your product. So a good rule of thumb is to watch your brush. And if the bristles are moving or widening, that's a really good indication that you are applying too much pressure. So you want to almost float your product on, and not to the point, obviously, where we aren't doing how we apply our Lexi line. We're not taking a dollop of buttercream and then floating it and walking it down the nail. We're still brushing it. We're still applying it. But notice how my brush is really not changing its shape very much. And then the second, when I say direction, that's what I mean, where consider when you're pushing your product into the sidewalls, into the cuticle, like you want to consider the direction of the gel versus your brush. So if you're coming this way, the gel is actually behind your bristles, right? So you're pulling, you are directing it. Now, if you're pushing, the gel's now going to be in front of your brush. So you always want to be considering where the gel is in regards to your bristles, because you don't want to be directing the gel to be too close to the skin or into an area where it's too tight to fit your brush and the gel. Let the gel work for you. All right, so I'm actually just going to wipe this one off. And I'm just using my Ellie wipes. I have a little stack here. And I'm just going to wipe that off of that nail. And really, the versatility of this product is why it's my favorite product. I don't know. I love our P Plus line. It's insanely pigmented for a soak off line. I didn't think I would ever soak off product, but it's fantastic. But these just have my heart, and that's predominantly because I can paint with them. If you can do a full cover nail, like this is done with ButterCreams as well. Actually, this is done with Flamin' Hot right here, the strawberries. And then I used Couch Couture, Green with Envy. Like these are all buttercreams. I love our gel paints too, but 90% of this design is done with buttercreams and it is so tiny. So I'm going to go ahead and cleanse this nail really quick. And then I think we are at a good stopping point. So I'm going to go ahead and switch cameras again.
This is a good time for any of you that are thinking about questions you're going to want to ask Ashley during the Q&A session. And if you do have questions, just remember you have to unmute your mic. And then when you're done delivering the question, mute it again. And then if you need to ask more, unmute. But we just want to make sure nobody's sounds are overlapping.
Okay. All right. I'm having an issue with my screen here. 1 second. Okay. I think we're back. So before we get to questions, hold on, am I muted? Nope, we're good. All right. Before we get to the questions, I did just want to do a little outro really quick. I wanted to make sure that you guys know you can visit lightelegance.com. There are local distributors all over worldwide. So always double check if you have one in your area. It's great to support your local distributor, but if you don't have one, definitely check out lightelegance.com. We also have just relaunched and revamped our Light Elegance University. So be sure to check that out as well. And oh, and you also get a code today. So my code is Ashley15, and that's actually good for 20% off on the site today. So be sure to run over and grab some products, probably some new buttercreams, because you're going to want some more, trust me. And then definitely be sure to tune in for next week's LE Power Hour. It will be Melanie Bosch going over our Zippy e-file and our Z-bits. So you definitely don't want to miss that one. And honestly, we really appreciate you guys being a part of the LE family in general, but becoming a part of the LE Power Hour community means a lot to us. This is something really fun that we're starting, and we're really excited to share all this free education with you guys. So as long as I did not miss anything, then we can go ahead and move on to the Q&A portion.
You did brilliant.
Thank you.
You hit it all. I don't have to do anything.
Okay,
So
I
whenever
have
you
a
get
comment
Oh
rather
yeah.
than a question. I have a comment. The way that you talk about your brushes, cleaning your brushes, is so detailed and so amazing. There are so many people that have no idea how to clean their brushes, and then they call us and say, why is my brush fraying? And if they watch you, it's perfect education on how to take care of these implements. And then also your technique with applying that, I have not actually ever seen it done that way. I have always been taught that you apply it super thin, but the way that you did it with getting that coverage all the way down your nail that you did was fantastic. And I cannot wait to start referring people to this video and to you for any kind of technique for buttercream, because you are just fantastic. You're an amazing teacher.
Thank you. I
Of
appreciate that. And I have several videos on my Instagram. You probably have to scroll a little bit to get back to them. I'm going to try to repost one after we end this today. But I do have several videos on brush cleaning, and I do have several videos on buttercream application, because I feel like those are the two questions that I get asked the most at trade shows and in my DMs. But definitely brushes. Like you said, Angela, a lot of people don't take care of their brushes, and a nail artist is only as good as their tools. And honestly, like I said, like our Kolinskis come at a higher price point, but that's because of the quality. And if you okay, listen, I almost said a tool addict. I'm a brush addict, probably more than anything else. I have 6 of these. So I have them for light colors, dark colors, shimmers, glitters. I have one for Lexiline. This is my favorite brush for applying hard gel. So I do have a lot of them, but I've had them all for an insane amount of time because I take good care of them. So it really is not just allowing you to have a tool that makes it easier for you to apply, but it's also about creating longevity and something that you're spending money on for your business.
Ashley, just because you mentioned your social, will you share your accounts with the viewers so that they can follow?
I always forget that part. My Instagram is badash_nails. So it's Ash like Ashley and then underscore nails. So yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
So I actually had a question about the top coat. Why do you prefer super shiny over the top gloss?
So for me, I prefer super shiny because a lot of my clientele are beauty professionals, mainly hairstylists. And because top gloss is a no wipe, it is porous. So it does stain, or it can stain. Personally, I don't see top gloss stain that bad. But with hair color, if my hairstylist client isn't wearing gloves, it will stain top gloss. Whereas super shiny is completely stain resistant. It doesn't yellow. They're both just as durable, but mainly I go for super shiny 9 times out of 10 strictly because it's a no stain top coat. But I do use top gloss every day because I use it for chrome.
Okay, thank you. I also had another question about the brushes. Say we do start seeing some fraying in our brushes. Is there any way to help that or fix that?
I have tried a few different methods. I know a lot of people recommend the boiling method. I will say with synthetic brushes, you have to be really careful with that because you can actually make them stick together. So I find maybe like a little bit of warm water, you could do it. But other than that, and don't spend a lot of money. There's a lot of like brush cleaning gels out there that say that they can make your brushes go flat. Do not waste your money on that stuff. Honestly, the best that I have found is I buy those flat little clamps and I put gel in it and then I put, what is that called? Wax paper. I fold wax paper over it and I put a clamp on it overnight. That's the best method that I have found if I'm trying to save a brush. But personally, these brushes are so affordable, like our synthetic brushes. Typically, if I have one that's really bad, I just replace it. But I do use the clamp if I'm trying to really salvage a brush, especially if I just bought it and we all make mistakes. I accidentally use cleanser on my brushes all the time. With natural hair brushes, same thing, but you're going to have more success bringing a natural hair brush back to life than a synthetic brush, if that makes sense.
Do you ever use our scissors and just snip off little stray hairs off of your brushes just to keep them nice and clean?
Yes. So if I were going to do that, let me find a rougher brush here. I keep a lot of my kind of destroyed brushes specifically for this purpose, just so I can teach, but I don't know if you guys can see that little hair that's coming off the side there. So one thing you never want to do is pull or try to get the whole hair out of so this is called a tang on the brush. So you never want to pull this out of that because what happens is this is pressed specifically to hold all these hairs together. So if you were to pull any of these hairs out, it starts to loosen it up. And then honestly, at that point, the brush is on its way out. But I am going to take these are the curved LE precision scissors. And I'm just going to snip off those little hairs down here. So sometimes you're still going to see a little bit of the hair sticking out, but that's going to make sure that you aren't altering the pressure of the tang down here. So you're not actually going to lose any of the other bristles. So if you do notice that something, and that mostly comes from not pressing your bristles together before you apply your cap, a lot of people just end up accidentally smashing their brush. So if that does happen, nipping it off is the best way to fix that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Ashley, you mentioned being afraid of putting applying too thick, which is, I'm definitely guilty of that. And then you get frustrated with like thin coat, and sometimes it takes 3 and you're like, this is supposed to be so great. How do you know if you are applying it too thick, if I'm going to start to be brave?
So mostly people notice it because they go on the lamp and then they come out and it's wrinkled. And so a lot of people will ask, hey, why is my buttercream wrinkling? And the answer is that it's being applied too thick. But a way to know before it goes into the light is because we're agitating the gel while it's on the nail, we're changing the viscosity, like those thixotropes are being activated. The viscosity is altering, even if we didn't alter the viscosity before we applied it. So everything is still going to self-level. So if you really notice that your buttercream is like running from you, or let's say it's flooding into the cuticle, basically at any point, if your buttercream is not staying where you put it, you know there's too much product on the nail, because what's happening is all of that excess product is pushing to self-level, and so then it's pushing all the other product out to the sides, out to the cuticle, out to the free edge. So that's a really good indicator if your buttercream is not staying put, that you have too much product on the nail.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question about, you said you dipped your brushes into, you said one step and something else at the end of the day to wipe it and clean it. It was clear. Can you emphasize on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think I took my brush container home, but basically when I purchase those little opaque containers, you can get them at most beauty supplies, but I will put some clear one step in there. And then what I do is I run my brush, I dip it in the clear, and then I run my brush on the lid. Like, so I'll just have a little bit on there, and then I'll just run it on the lid. And what that does, especially in my colored brushes, if you're using this for Lexi line, you don't really have to worry about that, because the Lexi line, there's not like color in it, so you don't really have to worry about that. But if you're using like buttercream glitters, things like that, the clear is going to push out all of the excess product that's inside of your brush. So it just helps make sure that you're not going to apply like a nude tomorrow, but the dark blue that you applied yesterday is coming out of the brush. But the two things that I was saying was clear one step, and then using a clean, dry Ellie wipe with no cleanser on it. Just pressing, like you're not wanting to press to the point where you're like trying to pull all the gel out. You're just pressing it just to pull the excess gel out. So very gently press, pull, and then I put them to bed for the night. Does anybody else have any questions? Don't be scared. I don't bite.
I'll answer anything.
Why don't you want to pull it too hard? I think I probably do that.
So the main reason you don't want to pull it too hard, for one, is because, like I was talking earlier, if you start pulling bristles out of the tang down here, there's only so much pressure down here. So if you really start pulling hard, you're going to start noticing more of those frayed bristles coming out like this, because you're pulling the bristles out of the metal.
This is right by Arizona State University, which I attend.
Can you say that again?
No, it was an open mic. I got it.
Oh, okay. I was like, hold on. I was like, I can't hear.
No.
Hi, what was the code that you gave for the discount?
It's Ashley 15, ASHLEY 15.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any more questions? Oh my God, I would be like, Ashley knows, she did my training when I joined the company. When you have somebody like her in your presence, you just want to unload. So don't be shy while you have her.
Yeah, I'm
I
like,
have
at
a
this point,
question.
yeah. Hi,
Yeah.
Shannon.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm well. Just a quick question. I'm not a nail tech, I'm not a professional, but I have a question with mixing buttercreams. If
Oh, yeah.
someone wanted to add buttercream to a gel, like a one step or an extreme, to create a custom gel color, does that affect the viscosity of the builder gel?
So it depends on what your end goal is. So like if anybody saw the power hour that Christy did, I think 2 weeks ago, she did some 3D cherries. She added like a microscopic dollop of red to her builder. So when you're mixing it in small amounts, not so much, but if you are trying to create a more opaque color with either like Jimmy Gel or your builder, it will start to change the viscosity up a little bit, but it's very minimal, especially with something like builder. I notice that more in something like Jimmy Gel. So if I do a dollop of Jimmy Gel and then say like a 1-to-2 ratio color to Jimmy Gel, it is gonna self level a little bit faster, but it's really not gonna alter it very much. It would take a lot of cream.
Okay, wonderful. Just for someone creating 3D art on top of the nail is what I was really hinting at. Perfect.
Yeah, Christy does it all the time. A lot of her clients get 3D nail art and she always mixes buttercreams in there, but she does it like I said, very minimally because she likes to keep it thicker, but she also likes more of that like jelly effect, which I think is really cool.
I always had
Perfect.
a problem, Shannon, back in the day.
Yeah.
We didn't have a strong pigment back then, and even if we did, the poor lamp couldn't cure it properly. So when we were mixing and trying to get opaque colors, we were using a lot of product. And
Right.
as Ashley has stated, like the buttercreams are so well created that it only takes a teeny tiny bit, so it doesn't even get to a point where it can touch I think the viscosity, because you need so much less to
Yeah.
get strong color.
Yeah, you'd have to mix in, I don't even know if you mixed an entire, it would probably have to be like a whole pot of buttercream to a whole pot of builder to probably change. And I don't even know if then.
I don't even think you would ever want three
No, I mean,
parts,
you wouldn't do it, but
like
No.
part, so like a quarter, right? So let's go like 3 in 1. I don't even think you would ever want that much buttercream. Like it would be like a fraction, a tiny fraction of the one part. Yeah.
I
Thank
love
you, ladies.
mixing yeah, I do love mixing colors with soft pink extreme to make colors to do rose quartz or like stone nails and things like that. That's really fun because you don't need a lot of buttercream pigment or a lot of buttercream in it. But because soft pink already has that milky pink hue to it, if you mix the color in, it makes that color into its own milky hue. So I do that a lot, like pre-make that for stone nails and such. But I definitely don't really notice it altering the viscosity. I think just because you, like Elaine said, you really don't need much at all.
While we're waiting for more questions, I will say this, if anybody is going to be in Orlando at the Premier Beauty Show, Light Elegance will be there, but Ashley is giving a couple classes. Yours are Sunday and Monday, right?
Yeah. Yes, Sunday and Monday. I think they're both at 1 p.m. They're both our gel and tell class. So it will be going over our Jimmy Gel, Lexi line, how to sculpt. But I will also be both days at the booth doing demos.
Yep. Yours is at 10:30 on Sunday, and on Monday it is at, oh no, sorry, it's in Arizona time. 1:30 on Sunday and 11:30 on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I was way off.
Oh, I know. I hate when it does that to my calendar. I have it on New York time, but or East Coast time. Yeah, so if any of you happen to be, not everybody in this room might be, but we still send this video out to everybody who signed up and couldn't make the live. So they may be interested to know that you'll be there and they can get more questions answered.
I have a
Yep, that's what I
question.
do.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
How do you feel about the P plus base for cleaning gel brushes?
Honestly, any clear gel from our line would work just fine. I personally like to use a thicker one. I feel like it works quicker, but that's just a preference. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using any other clear from any of our other lines. P plus would be great. I would say just use whatever feels like whatever works for you and your brushes, whatever you find that you like or you like the texture of, it's totally fine. There's nothing that would make it so that you shouldn't do that, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question, because not everybody has Lexi line. Maybe you only have the
Right.
people. and buttercream.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could absolutely use any clear. I do sometimes use Jimmy Gel in a pinch, or like at the trade shows, I use Jimmy Gel a lot on the brushes just because I just have it right there on the table and I just grab it and go.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. I had the advice to dip the top cap of the brush in whatever brush you're using it for, whether it's a glitter or a dark or a light. And I do recommend, like you said, to have one for every single thing that, yes. So I thought maybe it would be helpful for somebody else, because when I'm working on a client and it's sitting there, I'm just not trying to sift through and look and is it this one? Is it this one? It's
Yeah.
pretty obvious because it's dipped on the top. So I just thought maybe it'd be helpful to somebody else in that. So great. I'm glad you showed
Yeah,
them.
absolutely.
Glad you
No,
mentioned.
thanks for bringing that up because I did forget to mention that earlier, but I do exactly what she said. I dip all my brushes. So this is my light glitter, this is my dark glitter, this is my shimmer, and then I have all my other brushes marked with light and dark color. It definitely does help because also one thing that reminds me to mention, you want to make sure you store your brushes upside down. Don't store your brushes like this. Store your brushes cap side down. And the reason is because that weight will continue to pull the bristles down. So if you're storing it cap side up, gravity will do its thing over time and will be rougher on your brushes. So make sure you're storing them cap side down.
I'll double check mine. I'm sure it's that way, but now that you said that, it might not be on a couple of them. So I'll make sure that I do that. And I'm so glad to join your session. I think you're doing an awesome job.
Thank
And
you.
I'm way over in Michigan. Usually I'm working at this time, but I happen to be off today. So usually Michigan time is like 1 o'clock when you start. So I usually always sometimes can't join and I just record it. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. And if you have any other questions, you guys feel free to reach out to me on Instagram anytime. I try to get to my DMs as fast as I can. I also, you can reach out to me on Facebook. You can reach out to me on TikTok. I have all the things. So if there's any questions you guys have after this, that's one of the great things, honestly, about Light Elegance in general is accessibility to education. All of us educators are more than happy to help you at all times, answer any questions that we possibly can. Like I said, sometimes it takes me a minute to get through my DMs, but I do my best to get back to you guys and to give you consistent, constant education, not just at trade shows, not just in classes, not just in situations like this. We try to have our education accessible at all times because that's what we care the most about. And that's why I work for this company. I work for them not only because of the clean products, but I work for them because our number one concern is making sure that you, as the nail tech behind the table, are as educated as you possibly can be for your clients and for your own safety as well. So I really like to be as accessible to you guys as I can. So don't ever feel like you're inconveniencing me or anything like that. Please feel free to reach out anytime with any of your questions. And if I don't respond within a while, message me again.
He also
Another comment.
Yep.
Would you have a P+ application and a P+ glitter application session in the future? Because I feel like I need to have a little bit of education on that, even though I think I'm doing pretty good. I'd like to see that as well. Would something like
Okay.
that be coming up?
Well, you know what? I know we have a lot of other educators coming up, so I'll check with Elaine if we have anything on the list so far. But if not, I have quite a few power hours scheduled through the rest of the year.
I think the glitter can be a little tricky.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. We'll definitely see. I don't know if Elaine, if you know off the top of your head.
not so far on all of the outlines I have, and I'm up to I think into June right
Okay.
now.
So yeah, then I'll definitely get with Elaine if we don't have somebody else hopping in for that. I'll try to get one of those into my personal schedule on the power hours for sure.
For ideas.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I've got a quick
I also
question.
put in the chat, just so you all know, I didn't want to lose this. We do have a group, a community in Facebook called #new2LE. And you have to sign up to be a member. It's private, but the community in there helps each other, but all the educators are in there as well, and they're identified as an educator. So if you have a question, you can also join that group.
I'm going to pop in with another question, if I may.
Yeah, please.
I have some people in Canada watching, and they've sent me a message to ask you today because they couldn't attend. How do you suggest buttercream being used for stamping? Or would you recommend P+ to be used for stamping?
Honestly, I would probably recommend buttercream more than P+ because buttercream cures with less of an inhibition layer
Okay.
than P+ cures with still quite a bit of inhibition layer, but buttercream does not.
Have you had
Okay.
Not,
And
it's
this,
not completely. Sorry, I was talking over you.
no, that's okay. Her second part of that question is if you do stamp with buttercream, do you suggest agitating the buttercream to create a thinner viscosity before applying it to the stamp plate?
I would not agitate it. I would use it in the thicker viscosity because then as you're putting it on the plate and scraping, then that's going to cause some agitation, and then the stamp, like I always try to think of the end result. So if I'm not wanting it to self-level too much, then I'm not going to agitate it prior, if that makes sense.
Thank you. I will relay your answer to our professional.
Perfect.
Hey, Ashley, I'm curious about the sticky layer mattering versus P+ and buttercream after you've stamped. Does it affect how well the image transfers, or like what is it?
So I find, like, even though it's not cured yet, I find that it's harder to transfer the design. There's something about gels that cure with a stickier inhibition layer that they don't transfer as well from the stamp. And then I find they don't like adhere as good, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense, but I've never heard that. That's a good piece to know. I feel like people unwittingly struggle with stamping and don't know why, and that could be.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's probably, I've never bugged Jim about if there's any science behind that I could explain that better, but just from like personal experience, I find that any gels that have more of an inhibition layer tend to be trickier with stamping.
Can't beat experience.
True.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Do you ever use buttercream for the French?
Oh
And
yeah.
if so,
That's,
what would you recommend? What would you recommend with the pink then? The pink and white, which one would you use?
so for my French, I use just white buttercream. So that's actually what I used on these guys. And my personal like favorite Lexi line under that would be Ideal Pink or Baby Pink. But I actually have a lot of clients who really like, oh, it was from the Summer Out of This World collection. Oh, I can't think of that pink. Can you think of that pink? I'm sure.
Oh, is it Phone Home?
Phone Home is a really pretty, like less opaque buttercream. It was supposed to be like more of a jelly. One thin layer of that is really pretty under French. But I love using buttercream for French because it self-levels really nicely. So then you don't have as much of a ridge in between. Like the gel paints are really great for that, but some people struggle with the thickness of the gel paints. So I find that because buttercream self-levels so nicely, they work absolutely perfect for French.
What about as like a cover? So when you don't see the smile line as it grows out, like a cover pink.
Oh, Ideal Pink is usually the one that I use if I want cover.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Ideal Pink is really good, or if you want something that's a little more warm toned, Cashmere is my other personal favorite. So like myself, I'm a little more olive toned. So I do using Cashmere a lot on myself and a lot of my more olive toned clients, but Cashmere and Ideal both cover really nicely.
I have some of my favorites, like sitting here, and Phone Home is usually one of them. I don't know why it's not sitting here, but I like Nude with Attitude,
Nude
Earthling.
with Attitude is a good one.
Yeah,
Oh, Earthling is really popular in the salon for us too.
Earthling has that little bit of pearlescence to it.
It does. That's why it's so popular because it's not like a glitter, it's just a very fine shimmer.
Yeah, it's really pretty. I don't think the camera will catch it.
I know it's hard to see. It's
Way.
so pretty though. You just gotta get it.
Any chance you're demonstrating your rose quartz in a couple weeks?
I don't know that I could incorporate it into what I have planned for a couple weeks, but that's definitely stone nails in general and like layering designs is something that I did want to add in. So now that you've said that, I'll definitely add that into my roster if nobody else has.
Yay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I love it when we get feedback like this because it helps ideas for future shows. It's
I
great.
know. And like, I'm also going to, for those of you that do follow me on Instagram or that are going to follow me on Instagram, I've been trying to plan out what I'm doing for my future power hours. So I was actually going to post a poll to see what people want to see the most. So if there is something specific that you want to see and you see that pop up on my story, definitely respond to that. And if there is just something specific you want to see, absolutely just send it to me and say, hey, I would love to see this on your power hour. And I'll definitely add it into the roster. I have a lot. I snagged a lot of time slots, so
Yeah.
I want to
If
teach you guys all the things.
you have good ideas you don't get to let me know and we can see if some of the other team members can cover them for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have another question. It's not related to buttercream, but it's related to P+.
Okay.
Do you ever notice that when you stamp that the P+ top kind of will pool in areas, like looks pitted?
Okay. That was something I didn't touch on when Elaine asked me about the inhibition earlier. Thank you for that. I find that when you're stamping with gels that have more of an inhibition layer, that can happen. Because of the transfer process, I feel like it just ends up more, I don't know, there's too much there. So sometimes it causes like pitting in the top coat, which you could just very lightly take a dry wipe and just try to remove some of that inhibition layer. But sometimes it's just easier to use something that already has less of an inhibition layer. I know that we don't recommend hard gel over P+, but I think as long as it's a small portion of the design, usually we say it's probably okay. Unless you have issues, then don't do it. But I would say just trying to wipe a little bit of that inhibition layer should help with that pooling on the top coat.
So pre-stamping wiping of the inhibition layer.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
I break all the rules. I put super shiny over my P+.
I know, I'm like, a lot of people do, but obviously just as education purposes, we're not supposed to teach people to use it that way.
Because mostly people want P+, right? Because it soaks off, and the minute we throw super shiny over it, we ruin that.
no
But if
longer
you
soak
pile
off.
it, you can still soak the rest.
Right, absolutely. But if you have any issues with it, that's usually the first question that we're going to ask you is if you're using the proper system on top of it.
This is
But
where
actually,
your education influenced me because of our training time together. Super shiny is my go-to. I don't want to use anything else.
I know, I love super shiny. She's my girl.
Yep, me too.
And to fix the pitting, I've tried to do the P+ base because you're already deep, you already stamped it, and then doing the super shiny on
Right.
top. And sometimes it still just stubbornly pits. So
Yeah, it definitely can happen. But yeah, I would say just playing around with the inhibition layer afterwards, like with that wipe should help. But if not, maybe like even a paper thin layer of Skinny Jimmy before top coating.
That's a good idea. I've still got to get my brain to remember Skinny Jimmy all the time for things like this.
Yeah, and Skinny Jimmy is great because it obviously self-levels faster than regular Jimmy gel, but still not as fast as like one of our top coats. So if you're really pressing it in and applying that thin layer and then just quickly either using your flash dot to cure it or having them go right in the light, that should prevent some pooling as well. Oh my goodness, we went so long.
I think when you do these, we have to know the Q&A is going to be a little busier. Which I love because I think this is part of the experience of getting the live. People who sign and attend the live Zoom get the opportunity to have these conversations. And the viewers will learn from all your questions.
Yeah, definitely.
I think.
One quick thing, I think I remember since buttercream is hard gel, they don't recommend mixing it with the P+ line if you're trying to find that perfect shade. Is that true?
Yes, it's typically recommended to not overmix. If you are putting like a dotting tool's worth of buttercream into P+, I would have to double check with Jim to be like 1,000% on this answer, but I have a feeling that he would do his. It's fine. I think unless you're mixing an excessive amount of product to product, like it's really not going to cause issues for you. It is one of those things where, and I get this from Jim, like when he says you can do it, and unless you have an issue, then it's okay, maybe don't do that. But all of our products are really designed to work friendly with each other. I wouldn't be too worried about it. But like I said, it takes such a minimal amount of product. So if you're just doing like adding a drop of buttercream in there, I really don't think that it's going to massively alter, or your product's not going to blow up. It should be fine as long as you're not, if once you get to the point where there's more hard gel than soft gel, I think that's the point where they would start to combat each other.
I was surprised. We had an email conversation once many months ago. I must still have it somewhere. And I was surprised at how many of our products were allowed to be mixed together.
Yeah.
Like off the board, I was like, wow, I never expected it. I think I'm going to put a request in to the team. Maybe we make a chart that says these products are all mixable. Even if we say it straight up, until there's a problem, you can do it. I think
Yeah.
it nice to hear that, oh, you can mix this and this or this and this.
Yeah, it's just be aware that you are messing with, like at the end of the day, we all know what we're using behind the desk is chemicals, right? So as long as you're aware that what you're doing is mixing chemicals and you're like, okay, I did this time, maybe it didn't work out as well, maybe I won't do that next time. Just be very like conscientious of what you're doing and try to keep track of what you're doing. So like I keep a little journal anytime I do something weird, or I put a note in my client profile. So it's always good to just be aware of what you're doing and keep track of what you're doing. That way, if you do have a mistake, you can come back and troubleshoot. But generally speaking,
Yeah.
nothing bad is going to happen. The product's not going to work out on you.
Experiment on your entire client list for the week, because if it goes bad, it's going to be hell.
Exactly.
Learn that
Probably don't do that, but
learn that a hard way as a newbie.
A comment, maybe have a laminated chart for even specifically the Lexi line on which ones are best for flat nail, curved nail. I realized that Jim McConnell did a video on that, but if it's on a laminated chart and right in front of us, and say we got a client that comes in, we can go ahead and just refer to it and say this would probably be the best Lexi line gel for that person, depending on whether it's the builder, the extreme, et cetera, maybe something like that.
we do have a chart currently on one of the LE blogs that has it's what length and what service, and it'll show you the different recommended Lexi line. The only problem that I could see with doing a chart like that specifically for people who have like curved nails, etc., is that each of those people then also has typically, some people can have very curved nails or very sloped nails, ski jump nails, things like that. They can have that nail style, but then they can also have a different thickness of nails. So some people have ski jump nails, but they have very thick nails. Some people have ski jump nails and they're very paper thin. So that's the only problem that I could see with making a chart specifically like that, would be that you still have to cater to that specific client's nail type. But I would say like in overall, when you're dealing with a client who has issues like that, you do want to obviously use like the thicker gels, just because you're gonna want to build that up more. But I'm sure that there's something that we could work over to figure out to assist in that way, like we have our other charts.
Yeah, I just think if you can't do that, just knowing the product line itself, trial and error with the client, start out with something. If it doesn't work out, maybe have to go with something a little stronger if that's not strong enough for her, etc. And every client is their own recipe, and you just have to figure out what they do for a living and
I was going
go
to say
from there. And
the third layer is, what do they do for a living? Because then you have
hobbies,
flexibility, and are they happy?
If she's a cleaning lady, I'm going to put on something pretty strong.
Right.
Yeah. Which I definitely have that on the list of things that I want to do for a power hour, as well as to how to do a proper client consultation to assign the proper Lexi line to your client when they come in, and how to troubleshoot. So I definitely want to do that down the road as well. But
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
sure there's something we could get on about.
That chart we have on viscosity and flexibility is a good jumping point.
It is, and that way you can at least have an idea of what's good to use for what service.
Yeah.
So.
The client consultation idea is a good one.
Yeah, that one was a for sure on my list if nobody else
That's
had
why we
taken
have short blocks, right? So we can go into topics that normally if you're paying for studio and time for filming and stuff, those get left behind. But in a situation like this, we can hit any topics we want.
Can I ask a quick question just about the Lexi line? If you have a client and you're using the Lexi line, which obviously doesn't soak off, but then if I want to use a base layer, so for instance, if they came in and they were like, oh, I don't like having my nails done anymore, you don't want to file it right off. You want to have something that you could soak the last part off. What would you use underneath a Lexi line so that it could almost be a partial soak off? Would you have something that you could use as a base and then put the Lexi line for strength on top?
Yes, so if I was gonna want it to be a little more long-term, I would use Jimmy Gel. It obviously is gonna take a little bit longer to soak off, but that's gonna be more durable unless it's a client who's coming in, say, they're getting married, they want a full set and they know they want it removed after the 2 or 3 weeks. I've used Cutie Base underneath of Lexi line and it soaks off really fast. You don't even have to file it all the way down. But if I'm wanting more longevity out of it, I would use Jimmy Gel or Skinny Jimmy. I think basically just as long as you're not using.
Sorry, I'm just writing that down.
No, you're good. I'm thinking, just make sure that you don't use tack or power bond or anything like that underneath of the Jimmy Gel because that won't soak. But it's just good to be aware that when you do that method, it can affect how long your wear is on the Lexi line. So that's why I say gauge it based on how much longevity you actually want out of that.
Gotcha. But if they're not sure, then maybe use it. And Jimmy Gel, you don't have to put anything underneath.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I really only put something under Jimmy Gel if I have a client who's really hard on their nails, like a hairstylist or a medical professional. Then I will put tack or power bond underneath of Jimmy Gel, depending on the client. But Jimmy Gel does not have to have any kind of bonder underneath of it. But if you do put tack or power bond underneath of Jimmy Gel, it is going to drastically extend that soak off time. So just something to be aware of.
Gotcha.
Vanessa, you will get a recording in the email to this video in case your notes fail you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. We've got it down to a science now when this ends and the Zoom is done preparing the video. The marketing team gets it right out. So anybody who signs up for the Power Hour to watch it live gets that emailed to them. The rest of the world has to wait 2 weeks until it goes up on YouTube. All right, I think this is a good time to call it there. Way to go, Ashley. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Tuning in, and like Ashley said, next week we have Melanie Bosch, who is another amazing educator, tuning in to do Zippy, which is our e-file system. I think if you're thinking about doing e-filing, this would be a good starting point to get some information, probably to help you make your decisions.
I have a good question.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm at work, so I'm trying to ask this question real quick. It has nothing to do with the buttercream. It has everything to do with the Jimmy Gel. I'm sorry. But I wanted to know, Jimmy Gel, the builder in the bottle, I do it, but I want to use Ellie's Jimmy Gel, but I don't know what to order, like to start. Like what would be I don't know, like what's the base and what's the top and which one do I order? Because there's so much of it. Am I making sense?
Of the Jimmy Gel specifically?
Yes, like the
you mean
line. I don't know what to
bases and
start with,
tops?
like a starter kit, I guess you could say.
What bond or what?
So we do have the Come On Over kit, which does have Lexi line and Jimmy Gel in. It has a sample of tack and top coat. But realistically, you don't need, like I said, you don't have to have any kind of base underneath of Jimmy Gel. So if you just wanted to purchase like a clear and a color of Jimmy Gel just to try out, you could absolutely just go straight in with that and then maybe get some super shiny to go over top of it, maybe a
Okay.
buttercream to try out. But as far as like bases, like I said, Jimmy Gel does not have to have any kind of tack or power bond underneath of it. But
Okay.
personally, if I do use a base underneath of it or a bonder, I really love using power bond underneath of Jimmy Gel because it is a little bit more flexible. It's like a rubber base. So any client that needs a little extra oomph, I love using power bond under Jimmy Gel, but it doesn't have to have it. So if you just want to get a, like I said, a clear and then maybe try out one of the new pinks and just see, just like kind of mess with it and play with it, use it on your clients, see how you like it. You could absolutely just start with that and then just make sure you're top coating. You could do soft gel or hard gel on top of Jimmy Gel because it really can act as both. So outside of that, if you would like to use a bonder underneath of it, you absolutely can tack or power bond, but you don't have to. You could just purchase the bases and try them out for sure.
Okay, so I should do the come on over kit is what you're saying to start. I just didn't know what to get. So I would get the come on over kit is what you're saying?
You could, yes, absolutely.
And
So the
that's
come
the
on over
builder
kit,
in the bottle or the builder, whatever you call it. Yeah, Jimmy Gel builder in a
yes.
bottle or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, so it has a couple, like a sampling of our Lexi line. It has a sampling of Jimmy Gel, and then it does have tack, super shiny, and then it comes with forms, wipes for you to try
wow.
out. So yeah,
Right.
it's basically our intro kit to our brand. So it gives you a little
Okay.
sampling of everything. There's also a buttercream and a glitter in it as well.
Okay. Okay. That's what I
So
needed
yeah,
to know. I wanted to
that's
know
a
what
really
to,
great
I
sample
want to
option.
use, okay. Cause I wanted to use their builder in a bottle, or their builder, but I didn't know. I want to switch brands. That's it. I want
Oh
to switch
yeah.
brands and use builder in a bottle. And I just was like, I don't know what to get. So I'll do the come on over, you said.
Yes, I would definitely grab a come on over kit.
Okay.
If I could expand on that real quick for you,
Sure.
Yvette, where are you located?
I'm in Ohio.
We do offer free samples, and I have samples of all of the shades of Jimmy Gel that I'm happy to send you. If you wanted to reach out to me directly, I can send you stuff that you can try before you decide to make your purchase.
Cool.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I
You
appreciate
can
that.
reach out to me. It's super easy. It's just Angela@lightelegance.com.
Angela@lightelegance.com. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much,
My
Angela. And
pleasure.
thank you so much, Ashley. And it's Ashley
Yeah.
15 to get 20% off, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Angela Williams at lightelegance.com. Got it.
Or just Angela. It's just Angela@lightelegance.com.
Oh, Angela.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah.
That was a good one. All right.
Yes.
I think we should let you go because I'm sure you have a client anytime here.
Yeah, I definitely do in a little while.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.